Chris Cooper, yeah, you play Charles Aiken in August Osage County, which is adapted from the stage play. Had you seen the play before taking the role in the film?
No, I hadn't, and I live in Massachusetts here, and but I, certainly grabbed the script, stage play as soon as I could, and I'm sure you've been told they had to trim the play version, and so I read it a couple of times just to make sure I didn't lose anything from the story, or maybe get some other character tips, but. I read the stage play a number of times. Yeah.
And the play did have to be trimmed for the film. Were there any Charles Aiken's parts maybe that you would have wished you could have played
No. Yeah, I think that stayed intact. What was unfortunate, I think, is Sam Shepard's character Beverly had some wonderful lines, pages of lines, and I think we did. He did get to shoot that for the most part, but just in the editing, it had to get trimmed down quite a bit. And then the relationship between um, Abigail and Misty, those two characters, there were some scenes there where Abigail's character was explaining her parents, and uh, they were getting to know each other. I know that unfortunately had to be trimmed down some, but I think the essence of the play is still pretty strongly there.
It's been over a decade since you and Meryl Streep last worked together, and that was a good luck charm for you. That won you an Oscar that year for adaptation. Was she a major selling point on you wanting to do this film?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, you start with Meryl and Julia, and that's a great start. Plus a Pulitzer Prize-winning, script, and those are important to me. I always want to know who's aboard, and then having worked with her, like you said, more than a decade ago, after initially being pretty intimidated for the first couple of days. And that was my problem completely. She's a delight to work with, and she really set me at ease very early on, and I learned. I think I learned quite a bit from her back then. I think I had a tendency to take the work a little too seriously, and she kind of taught me to enjoy the process a whole lot more. Just don't take it, don't be too serious about it.
The entire ensemble cast is quite impressive. It's one of the more impressive ensembles brought together for film this year. As you mentioned, your sister-in-law is Meryl Streep, your wife is Margot Martindale, your nieces are Julia Roberts, Julianne Nicholson, Juliette Lewis. Just this amazing group of people. You mentioned you like to know who's on board a film when you take it. At what point were you cast? Like how much of this had already come together when you came on board?
I believe Meryl had been approached, and Julia, and I think I was the third. John Wells had come to Massachusetts a couple of years ago, and I was cast in a film called The Company Men. It was pretty timely piece about corporate downsizing at that time, and it was with Ben Affleck and Tommy Lee Jones, and it was another Weinstein project. And I'm only guessing because I haven't talked to John about it. I think only through working with him on that piece did I come to mind for this one. We worked very well together. In Company Men, and just thank goodness he remembered me.
Now, when you've got that kind of a large ensemble and you've got scenes like the dinner table, where you could just have tons of dialogue for all of you, and I guess lots of coverage and so forth. Are those kinds of scenes, when you do those in a movie, is that the most difficult kind of scene to do?
Um, well, yeah, I mean, it has its own difficulty. That was an 18 page scene, and it was pretty, if you look at a script, a page is supposed to represent a minute, and and that often, doesn't not often the case because you have to pause. You're acting. You have to pause for reactions or whatever. But to be able to pull that 18-page scene off in 20 minutes was pretty remarkable, and I think just everybody knew this massive scene was coming up. Everybody did their homework. Certainly, nobody wanted to be caught off guard because we wanted to move along on this. John wanted to set aside maybe 4 days to shoot this, and I believe we got it in like 3.5. But we did. I know we met at least once over at Merrill's and sat in her little at her dining room table, and we positioned ourselves at that time what we thought were our cast positions for the shoot, and we ran it a couple of times, and I think it went pretty smoothly, and we also had to incorporate the overlaps of different characters talking over each other, and then we ran the lines a number of times, and that worked out, and then I think we left ourselves alone to wait until we were at the set to set the movement of plates and dishes and serving ourselves and all that business. But I believe John Wells had also suggested that he shot it in a way that left some room for our not being really, really precise on the eating and the drinking and dishing up food and all that stuff. He left that a little loose for us, just in the way he set the camera.
The film is all about family secrets coming to light, at this time when they're all coming together. In approaching your character, without giving too much away, how much do you think Charles really knows about what's going on in his family? Do you think he's more aware than everyone gives him credit for?
I had to ask myself that, and to say yes, that he knew, that he had some inkling. I just realized that would serve no purpose. So as far as I was concerned, Charlie was completely unaware of this because I just feel like Tracy would have developed that. He would have had some underlying resentment toward Beverly, or I think there would have been some telltale signs. But and I didn't see that, so there was no reason to add that layer. Serves no purpose.
If you don't mind, I wanted to ask a couple of career questions, because you've had just a terrific career on film and stage and TV as well. That year you won the Oscar for adaptation. You'd already won the Golden Globe, some critics' prizes along the way. When you got to the Oscars that night, what were your expectations?
Well, I mean, I was in really, really good company. I mean, it was Alfred Molina, Paul Newman, I think Christopher Walken, some other
Ed Harris.
Ed Harris. But to be honest, I said I have a chance. I was very, very pleased with what Spike ended up putting together. I mean, the first time Merrill and I saw a rough cut of adaptation, we were horrified. We thought we were in really bad shape, and Spike will tell you, they edited that. They worked on that adaptation for over a year, trying to figure out how to make it work. And oddly enough, we shot the script that we had. The script made sense, but when it came to putting it all together, it weren't so lucky. But eventually they pulled it together, and I was very happy with what I saw. I thought, and I said, I have a chance.
It's pretty impressive that it can seem to go so wrong when you first see the rough cut, and then it can transform through the editing into something as good as adaptation turned out to be. Is that an experience you've had a lot where maybe the result that you see at first you're a little worried about, and suddenly things take a turn for the better once you see the finished product?
Yeah, it can happen, and there were some marvelous scenes that Meryl and I did with. Actually, we found a way of improvising, starting a scene, improvising, working our way into the dialogue, and working our way out with improvisation. And I just wish I had a little reel of that because it was so much fun. But even a lot of those great scenes just didn't make it, and that it to my experience, it's happened on occasion. It happened in a big way with adaptation, and in another way it happened with American Beauty. There were a good number of scenes that didn't make it to the film that kind of, to my mind, didn't give away too much of the story, but when you look back on it, it gave justification to why Colonel Fitz was the way he was.
Well, I was going to ask about American Beauty before you. That was 3 or 4 years before adaptation, and you got the SAG nomination that year. The whole group of you won for ensemble that year. But was there disappointment? I mean, we were all disappointed for you that you didn't get that Oscar nomination for American Beauty.
Well, I wish we could have. It seemed to be a seminal film for a certain age group of people, and seems to be really important for the, gosh, I don't know what generation, now the post-millennial generation. But it seems to be a real standout for them. But sure, we wish we could have won the Academy for that, but Kevin won, didn't he, that year?
Kevin won, and they won for Best Picture also.
Yeah. So I think we're still pretty lucky with the way it turned out.
Your TV and film career, you've been working consistently for the last 25 years or so. But American Beauty probably is that first film where a lot of people, a wide audience, got to know you and your work. Would you say that was a major turning point career-wise in terms of the opportunities you had that followed that?
Yeah, there were different. I'd say there were different stages and different opportunities came my way. To my mind. John Sayles gave me my first film job in a film called Matewan, and then we have worked together on an average of once every 5 years. So I've done 5 films with John, and I think before American Beauty, a film called Lone Star that we did, that really I noticed that helped my career quite a bit. And then American Beauty certainly was a big help. Yeah.
I'm so glad you brought up Lone Star. That's one of my favorite performances you've ever had.
Well, thank you. I mean, I think it's John's biggest ticket moneymaker. you know, and it's kind of funny. Marianne and I were up at John and Maggie's when they lived upstate, and we were just hanging out for a long weekend. And as they were preparing dinner, John was telling me about his next film script, and he's going on and on and on and on and on. And I'm saying, you know, it sounds a good story. And then he closed telling the story, and he said, "I want you to play the sheriff." And honestly, it came as a big surprise. And then I remember when I finally got the script, I got really lost because you know, he said he wrote it with me in mind, and then I looked at the character and I couldn't find the connection. And what I was actually, I think I was working too hard. And so I set the script aside, called him up. I said, "What is going on with this script? I can't, I'm having a little confused." He said, "Just leave it alone and come back to it in a week and a half." I did exactly that, and then I started putting, you know, started doing some homework on it, and things started coming together. But initially, I was kind of, I couldn't make the connection with the character.
I wanted to ask you, August Osage County is adapted from the stage, and you've done some stage work
Mm-hmm.
in the past. Is that something you're interested in pursuing in the future, more stage work?
Um, the stage work I did, I may in the future, but what I realized when we had family, when we had a child and all that, I realized my demands for doing theater were really not fair to the family, because if you think about it, you're doing a, you know, curtain is at 8 o'clock. You're working till 10:30. You know, as I remember, I never got to bed until after 2 in the morning. I'd sleep late, get up late, and the first thing I'm thinking about is the, you know, play that night. And I just kind of demanded an arm's distance to be left alone. And after a while, it just wasn't fair to the family. So and there were a lot of demands that needed to be taken care of with the family. My son had some real special needs, and more often than not, you know, the weight was on Marianne's shoulders, and sometimes I would be gone on a shoot for 4 months, you know, and but when I'm shooting a film, it's a totally different kind of head that I'm in. Take it a little more easily, but stage is what I started out with. I did 15 years of theater before I ever did any film, and then I didn't do a film until I was 35. You know, but I realized that anyway. You know, I said I just realized I couldn't do that. And if I find a play now um, that I'm crazy about, I may get back to the stage. We'll see. We'll see.
I had one other question going back to the Oscars for a second. I'm assuming that you've been a member of the Academy for a good while now. And I like to ask this question to actors, especially somebody like you that I think is an actor's actor and really respects the craft. When you're voting each year, what kinds of what gets your attention? What kinds of performances really attract you to make you want to mark their names down? You don't have to give
Uh,
specific names if you don't want to, but just what
well,
attracts you as
the
from an
criteria,
acting standpoint?
what I look for is for an actor's performance that is not a repeat. I want to see something new. I want to see stretch. Um, I have been, as an actor, I have been given this title of character actor, I see where that comes from. I don't know of a time where I feel like where I've repeated myself. So that's what I look for, a strong stretch like, I'll pat ourselves on the back. I mean, I've never seen Meryl playing this character, and then I've also seen Kate Blanchett. What I see in this Woody Allen film that she's done, it's just staggering what her performance. And I see that as a good challenge, a good stretch for her. So I want to see. I hope that's clear. I mean, I want to see a challenge. I want to see a stretch in actors' works that's up for the awards.
Yeah, I think that definitely makes sense. I think, from an actor's perspective, and I think also from the audience's perspective, when we follow these actors' careers like Meryl, like Kate Blanchett, and like yourself, and most of the time we're looking for them to show us something we haven't necessarily seen, and I think you've done a good job of that up to this point. I want to wish you the best of luck with this film as it's released later this month and on the award scene in the weeks and months to come. So thank you very much for your time.
All right, guys. Thank you. Enjoyed it.